Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live. I'm Mike King, and I had a couple of free minutes. I was going to post a video, and then I thought, what the heck? Let's just jump on together, see how everybody's feeling, and talk a little bit, if you'd like, about Ana Walshe. I was busy doing some stuff with News Nation and wrapped up, and I thought, let's just jump on and say hi and get into this and talk through this thing. So to everyone in the chat, hello. It's so great to see you all. And you know what? I think we're gonna roll pretty quickly tonight. I will watch for questions, and if there's something that pops up here that we ought to talk about, we'll certainly do it. And got a shout out to Stephanie, new to the channel. So thanks so much. Really appreciate you joining up with us. And hello to everybody else. So thanks a lot. Let's jump into this, should we?
Detectives from the Cohasset Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police detectives assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office have been involved in an intensive investigation into the fate of Ana Walshe.
Well, Brian Walshe, the husband of the missing Massachusetts woman Ana Walshe, was just charged with murder. Now, she's still missing, and we're going to be looking at the case and how prosecutors got enough evidence to charge him. The question is this guy who's already awaiting sentencing on another case going to end up getting a conviction out of murder? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Profiling Evil and this update on Ana Walshe, missing person case, now deemed homicide. I hope that you'll take a moment as we get started and hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get all of our videos. And please share us with your friends. Now, for those of you with a short attention span, we're going to do this one quick. We're going to recap it. Think about this one. Ana Walshe was reported missing on January 4th of 2023, just a couple weeks ago. But she really disappeared on January 1st, New Year's Day. And we know that because everything's starting to point back to it. Her husband's testimony that she went to the airport, the fact that she quit doing social media, something she did all the time. And there is a batch of discrepancy out there because some media reports early on say that her husband was the first to call police, that he called just a few days after, but her employer, they adamantly disagree. And it appears that police records are supporting what the business is saying, not the husband. You see, the security chief from the place where she was working in Washington, D.C., contacted police after he wasn't satisfied with the excuse that she just wasn't around. He said that he'd like police to make a welfare check. That's where law enforcement goes out, bangs on the door, and just says, hey, people are worried about you. We wanted to know if everything's okay. Well, as soon as they made it clear that they were calling, I think a little damage control jumped in. They were concerned because she didn't show up for work. Well, at about this same time, her husband was trying to do this damage control, and he quickly called police himself, notifying them that Ana was missing. And again, it's really important to point out that the media checked into police logs when those calls for service came in. And according to media reports, the husband's call came in after the employer's call. Now, it also appears in these early conversations with police that Ana's husband suggested that Ana simply decided she wanted to head back to work early in Washington, D.C., earlier than normal, again, leaving on a holiday. And this left police and the community wondering if there may have been some kind of an accident along the way, somewhere between her home and the airport. Her husband said she took a ride share, so that means something had to happen between the house and the airport if she really did fly. And all indications from the investigation was there are no flights that had her name on those on January 1st. So The more we learned about this, it's absolute that there was an accident of some kind, probably more a murder that happened at home. And that's because police, when they searched the home, found a bloody knife and blood in the family's rented home. Now, it would only take them a few days to charge Anna's husband with misleading the police investigation. And that all happened when Walshe's husband said he'd never gone on a little journey that the police figured out he had. Now, according to all the reports, Brian Walshe drove 20 minutes away to a local Home Depot just about the time that Ana disappeared. He purchased $450 worth of cleaning supplies, and get this, he paid cash for it. Now, it appears that he lied about doing all of that, and that's what landed him with the obstruction of justice charge, and frankly, helped police continue to focus in on him. Let's look at this quick report.
Ana Walshe now heating up, shifting to trash facilities like this one here behind me after gruesome details were released in court.
Do you understand that charge, Mr. Walshe? Yes.
Brian Walshe faced a judge charged with misleading police in their investigation into his wife's disappearance. Ana Walshe vanished, last seen January 1st. Prosecutors say they found blood in the couple's Cohasset home.
Blood was found in the basement area, as well as a knife, which also contains some blood.
Prosecutors also say while his wife was missing, Brian went to Home Depot and bought a mass of cleaning supplies.
About $450 worth of cleaning supplies. That would include mops, bucket, tops.
He's not charged with murder. He's charged with misleading investigators by not saying, as I understand it, he went to Home Depot.
Brian Walshe has not been charged in his wife's disappearance, but authorities laid out their case and began to ramp up searches in trash. First, police activity centered around his mother's home in Swampscott. Crime tape surrounds where a dumpster once stood. Then investigators were seen here at this Peabody transfer station, sifting through trash late into the night. Wearing hazmat suits and using canines, authorities meticulously comb through garbage, one dump truck at a time, finally appearing to sort items on a blue tarp. It's unclear what authorities may have found here tonight, but Brian Walshe is being held on a $500,000 bail. Live in Peabody.
Well, I'm not sure what this guy's going to use for a defense, because it's going to be really hard to argue against that in-store video showing him making these purchases. Investigators, again, let me remind you, searched the residence where they recovered evidence that included the knife and blood. And I'm confident that they immediately started some forensic examinations to determine whose blood was on the knife. And you know what? I'm starting to guess that it was Anna's. Now, once it was learned that blood evidence and physical evidence were recovered there, they started looking at his travels, I suspect. And I think we're going to learn that they used forensics on his mobile device, on the vehicle, and then they used some common sense policing. They started looking at places that he might have gone. And we've seen all these searches these videos and pictures where the police were searching in the woods around him. But the amount of blood they apparently recovered are starting to suggest something much more gruesome happened. Then, once we learned the police recovered physical evidence and blood at Walshe's, this is Brian Walshe, the suspect, his mother's apartment complex in the dumpster, and that, by the way, that blood and that hacksaw that was recovered, I suspect have been tested and have Anna's blood on it as well. That also led them to go to the Peabody transfer station where additional evidence was recovered, probably body parts and other evidence of Anna's demise. Now, we know that because that was a big old blue tarp that they were hauling stuff off from the trash dump from. Now, police again are reporting that there isn't a digital footprint for Ana after New Year's Day, and I suspect there is ample evidence that's being studied forensically in relationship to her husband. I mean, not only, again, his mobile phone activity, but his vehicle activity. In addition, if this guy made the drive from his home to his mother's residence, where the evidence is suggesting that he dumped either body parts or at least tools that were used in this murder, if in fact they tie them all together forensically, then he would have passed a number of public transportation cameras that are out on the freeway system. These closed cameras are shown on this map here as we're looking at it, and they are maintained by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. And those, along with a whole host of other cameras, probably are being used to impeach this guy and any testimony he made about where he did or didn't go. There we go. Let's stop right there and look at some of the questions that are coming in. And then I thought if you'd like, and please put in the chat if you would like to do this, we could pop up a map and maybe explore the area a little bit. There was one question that popped up early on, and I can't remember who asked it, but they were wondering how many no body cases have been won. Here it is from Katie. I know you can bring murder charges without a body, but does it make the case harder to prove? Absolutely, it makes it harder. And so a couple things that are really important to think about here. I went back, I think during the Suzanne Morphew case, and did some statistical analysis, and there have been more than 500 murder convictions in the United States, and I don't know the number globally. So for our friends that are watching from overseas, please accept that I have U.S. data at my fingertips. But there have been more than 500 murder convictions without a body in the United States. So that's good news. But that means that the circumstantial evidence, the physical evidence, and other evidence has to be incredibly overwhelming to suggest that. And here's why it's so important in this particular case. We know that police indicate that they found a knife and blood in the home. So the thing that becomes important is, what's the volume of blood that's found in the home, and would a reasonable person be able to survive if that much blood was lost? So that's the first thing that can kind of point to, even though we don't have a body, this is overwhelming evidence that they couldn't have survived that. In this particular case, if what I'm starting to think is happening here, I'm sure they tested that blood in the home before they filed these charges against him. But they also had blood at his mother's apartment complex in the dumpster and around where the dumpster was, including on that hacksaw and other items that they recovered there. Again, based on the volume or the fact that they again recovered in a secondary location a large amount of blood. Again, it's like, how much blood can a human being lose before they flat cannot sustain life? And that's going to be the really important thing there. So let's just take a second and let me just sip through here and see if you want to look at a map for a minute, and we'll see if anybody is saying look at a map. If you're not, we won't worry about it. As I'm looking through here, I'll see if there are any other questions. Does he have an ankle bracelet on? Melanie's asking. I don't believe he's been released from jail, for one thing. I don't know if he was wearing an ankle bracelet on the Andy Warhol case, where he made up that he was selling Andy Warhol paintings, and it ended up being forgeries. I think he was awaiting sentencing on that, and certainly he hasn't got one yet because he hasn't been arraigned on this particular case. So, yeah, Erica, what would I be without a map? I love maps. Let's see. Yeah, this is. Love a good map. Yes. Okay. So I think you've convinced me. Let's look at this. So here's a couple of things that I find pretty interesting. Here's the Walshe residence, and if we were to if we were to zoom in on that, I've kind of set this up so that as we get in a little closer, we'll revert to an aerial image. And what I want to do is just show you what I did is I put into this map an aerial image based on the foliage in the summertime here. And I mean, this is a pretty wooded area. Certainly a lot of places that a body could be disposed of. But again, I think the important part is how much evidence was recovered at the dumpster at the mother's apartment. And then if they were hauling that big blue tarp full of stuff at the dump, then how many body parts are actually associated with that dump? And if they were body parts, then you can really start to zone in on the fact that this was a homicide. But again, I mean, if you look at this, can you imagine how difficult it would be to recover a body in any of this area here? It really helps us start to understand what's going on. But then as we zoom in, I switched over to some imagery now of what things look like this time of year. And this was before the snow started falling, but you can see into the trees and see the foliage. Now, depending on if there have been storms the last couple of days between the time that she disappeared and police were doing the search, then evidence could be covered up really easily. And we know that storms have been rolling through like crazy. So again, this is pretty darn tough. Here we see the swimming pool in the back of the house that police were looking at and the area. But let's just go back out and kind of look at the area for a minute here in totality. So one thing that we do know is that Brian Walshe drove from his home over to Home Depot. And the most probable route is going to be this direct route here. It's really a trip if he were to go the other direction and starts adding some pretty interesting time, maybe a little bit shorter, but this is the fastest route according to the computer. So this is the first thing. This is the thing they impeached him on, and this is what led to him being arrested for obstructing justice, because that is exactly where they had video of him, and they were able to say, "Nah, you're not telling us the truth." Now, his story of why his wife was missing or gone was that she decided on New Year's Day to head to Washington, D.C., where she works, a little ahead of schedule. And again, because of all of the waterways, this is the most natural route to the hospital. The thing that's interesting is he said that she took a ride share or a taxi. So that's pretty easy to impeach that kind of information as well. So the next thing that became interesting is it possible that he drove to the mother's house? And there's evidence supporting that theory. And so then what really becomes interesting, and by the way, this distance from the mother's house to the Peabody transfer station is meaningless. That just, they knew that when that trash dumpster was picked up, that particular truck went to this transfer station to unload. And so that's the only tie there. It has no tie to the murder other than the transfer of evidence in this particular case. But what's kind of interesting is to go back down into this area that he would have had to have driven to his mother's home. We'll just clear this off and bring it in a little differently here. What I did is I created a little buffer, and I said, hey, within this buffer of about 1,000 feet, 500 on each side of the road that he would have taken, tell me where there are cameras in the area. And so here we were able to bring in each of those cameras that are alongside that route. So law enforcement's going to have a lot of forensic evidence that they can capture in regard to this thing. And that extends into if they have a camera infrastructure for other types of cameras as well. So let's see what you got to say. And if we need to talk about that anymore. And thanks for letting me show the map, by the way. Let's see here. Okay, let's just pop back into the video. And if this isn't piling on enough evidence, Massachusetts authorities are saying now that Walshe also searched the internet for terms like how to dismember and dispose of a body, even including searches that suggested a 115-pound female. Can you imagine? Now, his statement that his wife left home on New Year's Day probably spent or twisted and turned a lot of different investigators as they tried to figure out, is it possible that she was hurt somewhere between their home and the airport? And they undoubtedly started researching all of the taxi or rideshare programs to see if any of them showed any record of someone being picked up at that residence or dropped off at the airport. And I suspect there were none. So let's just stop there for a second and ask Fofocat's answer this question here. So the charge of improper transport of the body, yeah, that's a great pickup there. I actually missed that. So that to me would be something that would support that they have evidence of her body parts being recovered, or they're saying there's just so much blood that her body was transferred to some other location. Again, there's got to be something physical that they've got there that's given them what they need to do that. And frankly, we don't know if this guy has confessed by this time either. So a lot of that will come out when we hear and see the arrest affidavit, probably in the next day or two when he's arraigned on the homicide charges. So let's jump back in. Now, Brian Walshe sits in a jail cell awaiting his arraignment on murder charges.
Early in this investigation, the police developed probable cause to believe that her husband, Brian Walshe, age 47, had misled police investigators on material matters important to the search for Ana Walshe. He has pled not guilty to those charges and is currently being held at the Norfolk County House of Correction. The continued investigation has now allowed police to obtain an arrest warrant charging Brian Walshe with the murder of his wife. Mr. Walshe will be transported to the Quincy District Court for arraignment on the charge of murder. Additional details of the investigation and the evidence in support of those charges are likely to be presented at arraignment, but will not be disclosed at this time.
And his legal troubles just continue to mount up as he waits not only for the previous charges and sentencing on that, but now these new ones to determine whether this guy's going to be free on bond or sit in jail until his trial. Well, there you go. I want to make sure I thank Susie Bailey Copty. Gave a really kind donation last time we were here after things kind of shut down, and I really appreciated that. And folks, by the way, please hit the subscribe button. We want to grow just like everybody else, but we want to do it responsibly and do it in a way that we just don't want to be outrageous on this channel. So thanks so much. And Diane, yeah, it's like training a monkey trying to get me to do this, isn't it? It just seems to be a repetitive kind of a problem that I have of not running things. I really miss the boys in the back office. They got so busy with their day jobs and their personal lives that it's just been really difficult to get on with them. So I have to do all this on my own now, which you end up suffering as a result of it. So yeah, this is a beautiful woman who apparently had a great career. And if we start to theorize what was going on, I mean, her husband had committed this fraud, was facing charges. Now in the suit against them, there were allegations that she was in on the gig with him. Don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't matter. It's not a reason to murder someone if in fact he did murder her. But I suspect through the holidays, him getting close to going in and being sentenced, probably in jeopardy of losing a whole bunch of stuff. They were living in a rental house, which means they lost their home, which incidentally, their previous home burned to the ground, and I'd really like to know if there was an insurance settlement tied to that, and if any of that has been investigated more thoroughly. But all of that together makes you wonder about what kind of problems were going on. There are also all kinds of things online suggesting that there may have been some disruption in the family dynamic, and I'll tell you what, just another example of what can happen and how serious the problem of domestic violence is, if in fact that all is what's happening. So let's jump back in. Expect that arraignment's going to find that he needs to be bound over, and then we'll see whether there's going to be a preliminary hearing or just move right to trial. Now, he's had a severe falling out with his family too, and that's going to be problematic for the guy. Apparently, this falling out also happened with his son, and according to CNN, his son has had some problems handling family affairs with this dad. And the couple's children have now been placed in the care of Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. So I don't know how many times I've talked about domestic violence and domestic violence homicide, folks, but it is my opinion that domestic violence situations do not get better on their own. National statistics say that homicide is the 5th leading cause of death in women ages 18 to 44. But here's something that's really frustrating. Intimate partners commit 14% of all the homicides that occur in the United States. And more than 70% of those victims, now exemplified by yet another case, 70% are female. I mean, isn't that incredible? And how many times we've talked about this? I just want to say it one more time. I do not believe domestic violence situations get better on their own. And I'm going to say it again. Domestic violence situations, in my opinion, do not get better on their own. And if you're convincing yourself that somehow it's going to get better, I just statistically don't believe it. And I wish you'd get some help, or if you have a friend that's in that position, get some help. You know what? You guys are so amazing. I really appreciate the fact that you would take time to jump on with us, and we'll go through the remainder of this. And again, thank you for supporting Profiling Evil. Let's jump back in. This really tragic news is research showing that partner domestic violence, these homicides in partner domestic violence, are often predictable. And if they're predictable, that means they're preventable. So folks, if you or anyone you know is in a domestic violence situation, please reach out to your mental health or your medical provider. Try to get some help. And you know what? If you don't know where to turn, contact your local police agency for help. And I hope that you'll go back and watch some of my other videos with Dr. Jane Monckton-Smith and Dr. Ramani, both on domestic violence homicide and on domestic violence in general and psychopathic personalities. Both are excellent, and both deal with domestic violence and domestic violence homicide. So now it's up to you. What are your thoughts on this case, folks? Is this the outcome you expected from the beginning? I'm going to be looking for your comments down below. And this one's a tender, sensitive subject. So I hope that you'll be kind with one another and that you'll take time to respond to each other. This could be triggering for some of you folks, so think about it and be kind. I hope you'll take time and hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so you're getting all of our videos. Now this week, we released Series 1 and Series 2 of the Profiling Evil Academy on audio podcast. So if you like audios, you're getting ready to jump in the car and go on a little bit of a long-range trip, you can binge listen to Profiling Evil Series 1 and 2 of the Academy on your favorite podcast platform. And for those of you that have been waiting for Series 3 and our release, it happened 2 days ago. And it's now available, but only to Academy channel members. We're going to be releasing Season 3 of the Academy. 16 episodes that are only going to be available for the first couple of months to Academy channel members. So please go over to the channel membership page and sign up. It's only $4.99 a month, and it'll give you a chance to catch up on all those things and, frankly, support Profiling Evil a little bit more. I really appreciate you thinking about that and considering doing it. Now, if you can't afford it, don't sweat it. In about April, we'll start releasing those out to the general public. So hey, don't forget to catch me on News Nation and Court TV this week as we talk about this case and many other criminal cases that are unfolding across the United States. And remember, folks, you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And listen, if you've just met somebody new or you're thinking about hiring a brand new babysitter, don't forget to check out my friends over at Truthfinder. And one of my favorite research tools is Truthfinder. It's online, and you're not going to believe the information stored there. So if you want to know more about that new neighbor, your babysitter, or your next online date, give Truthfinder a try. I'm including a link below with special discount pricing. You got to click the link to get it and then enter EVIL10 at checkout. We're an affiliate, which means we get a small commission, enough to buy a small Diet Dr. Pepper, but you can cancel at any time. Well, thanks for your support of Profiling Evil, and we'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.